Current and aspiring parents can look forward to new measures to support them in their familial journey, with details to be announced at this year's budget and Committee of Supply. And they include a new scheme to help large families with their household expenses. The Manpower Ministry will also update details of its work with tripartite partners in having companies implement flexi-work arrangements, plus possible rollout plans of lactation rooms for mothers to use across office buildings and business parks. These updates come after over 7 hours of debate in Parliament today, as over 20 members rose to discuss policies in building a Singapore made for families. Now, the motion was moved by MP Hanny So, who called for more support for families in various areas. For instance, helping young couples and families cope with the costs of buying a public flat.
I therefore hope that HDB can review the current measures to continue to ease the COV situation that young couples face, or allow more flexibility in allowing housing loans or CPF savings to be used for the payment of such COV component. Also, would it be possible for families to seek a lower and/or deferred housing loan repayment rate from HDB for the first few years of their child's birth?
MP Zulkarnain Abdul Rahim supported her motion. He was among those calling for work arrangements to give families time to care for their children, such as more parental leave. He cited a study that shows mandatory paternal leave increases the father's involvement by 25%.
Challenges include employer resistance and operational concerns. Now, to address this, employers can offer flexible work arrangements which have been shown to boost employee retention and satisfaction by 30%. Incentives like tax breaks or increased foreign manpower quotas could encourage businesses to adopt family-friendly policies.
If we cannot legislate for flexible work arrangements, can we then at least ensure that parents are able to care for the needs of their child via increasing the number of days of childcare leave or to have it on a per-child basis?
My first ask is that we increase childcare leave and provide it on a per-child basis. Yes, I've asked for this for many times now, and I'm asking for it again because I know how precious time is. Working parents with children under 7 years old can take up to 6 days of childcare leave every year. This is 6 days, no matter whether you have 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more children. How does this make sense?
Nominated MP Mark Lee urged the government to provide more support for businesses to create a more family-friendly work environment.
For smaller businesses with lean teams, the absence of even one key employee can have a significant impact on daily operations. Even as we prepare for the increase of government-paid paternity leave and shared parental leave, both laudable initiatives, these challenges are amplified. Reintegrating employees after extended leave also requires careful planning to maintain productivity.
MPs also raised issues to do with schooling. For instance, the cost of childcare and stress for older students.
I suggest to raise the basic subsidy for full-day childcare by $100 and correspondingly to reduce the minimum co-payment for median and low-income households by $100. In this way, young parents across the board, whether higher or lower income, can benefit from $100 less in full-day childcare fees every month.
For families with older children, including those in primary school and secondary school, they face a different set of challenges and worries, especially when it comes to education-related stress. Our Education Ministry has been taking the initiative to redefine success beyond merely achieving high scores and instead tilt towards cultivating skills for lifelong learning and adaptability. But this will take time, and mindset shifts do not take place overnight.
Rising in response, Minister Indrani Raja says the government is committed to supporting Singaporeans along their marriage and parenthood journey. Ms. Indrani helps to oversee the National Population and Talent Division in the Prime Minister's office.
We expect marriage and parenthood initiatives to cost the government close to $7 billion in FY 2026, up from over $4 billion in 2020. That's just for the early childhood sector and the upcoming parental leave enhancements. This is over and above our subsidies for general and higher education, as well as our housing subsidies. So, sir, we will continue to review and update our policies as called for by the original motion.
In a debate that followed, Leader of the Opposition Pritam Singh asked if people would need to provide proof of divorce to rent a flat. Workers' Party MP Faisal Manap had raised the issue in his speech of the difficulties faced by single parents. Second Minister for National Development Indrani Raja responded that the Housing and Development Board doesn't require a finalised divorce for rental applications. Mr. Singh then read out a rejection letter from HDB that he said was issued last year.
HDB would not be able to consider an applicant's application if they have not obtained the deed of separation or when the divorce is not finalized, as we would need to know the distribution of matrimonial assets, if any. Furthermore, for divorce applicants who wish to apply for a flat with their children below 21 years old, they would need to have custody with care and control as stated in the order of court. So it would appear not to be consistent with what the Minister is sharing.
I believe that in the reply, Mr. Singh did refer to HDB talking about a deed of separation. And a deed of separation is something you can do even before the interim judgment. So maybe that might be a way of doing it. But perhaps what I can do is see whether HDB's procedures can be more facilitative, because that will help people who may not be familiar with all the various legal documents.
Non-constituency MPs Leong Man Wai and Hazel Phua were the only two who dissented to the motion. Mr. Leong had proposed an amendment to the original motion for the government to reimagine its current policies for families. It was rejected. Mr. Leong also asked if the government would declare Singapore's declining fertility rate a national emergency.
I'd like to ask the Minister, first of all, whether when we are debating the need for more policies, are we treating this as a national emergency or not? Or is just business as usual, maybe we need more? But I think the most important thing that we need to agree is that this is a very urgent problem, and I would classify it as a national emergency.
We have already started the reimagination process, and we have done that under Forward SG, and we've done engagements. In fact, if you take into account all the people that we have engaged through the various exercises, it's almost like 200,000 people, and that would include the families, family members, parents, etc. Then I think the next point that Mr. Leong raised was talking about whether the policies at work resulting in a low total fertility rate. I think the point I made in my speech, which I must reiterate here, is that declining total fertility rate is a global trend. It's not just Singapore.
Ms. Indrani also adds Mr. Leong's proposed amendment is tied to the Affordable Home Scheme suggested previously by the Progress Singapore Party. She says PSP's scheme constitutes a raid on Singapore's reserves. At one point, Mr. Leong was also asked to keep his clarifications short.
Mr. Leong, can you get to your clarifications? You are making a lot of mini speeches here. I implore you. I've said this many times to everyone. I'll say it again.
So that's I
allow you to make clarifications, as many as you want, but please make them and make it succinct.
Some clarifications
you don't have to state all
some clarification needs
your
to
preambles
have
are super long. Right? So just state your clarifications.
So the fourth point
Many other members have stated their clarifications.
So the fourth point is that...
Let me finish, Mr. Leong, I'm speaking.
Mr. Leong also asked about setting targets for family-friendly policies.
Does the Minister agree that when I say we set a target, we are not actually trying to force Singaporeans to have babies? We are saying that as a policy objective. Does she agree that we cannot be just implementing policies without thinking that whether those policies will yield a certain amount of result.
I mean, there are certain things where you can set targets, and there are certain things where you can be as encouraging and as facilitative as possible, but I don't think that you can put a finite measure on it. I think it would be very difficult to say to Singaporeans, you must produce X number of babies.